What is up, everybody? Welcome back. Appreciate all of the feedback and support for the newest addition to the Sports and Torts podcast family with our weekly college football segment called Last Call. Having a lot of fun with that and glad everybody out there is as well. Also had some great lawyers on the podcast recently. We are rocking and rolling. So please, if you've missed some recent episodes, go to sportstorts.com, check some of those episodes out. But football is taking a back seat today, my friend. It is October. It is MLB playoff season. The Braves absolutely rule. And me and my buddy, Josh Gernatt, we got to talk about it. We want to talk about it. Loyal listeners will recognize Josh's name and voice from several prior episodes you've been so good to join us with, including the 2023 season preview. Always brings the goods for baseball and the Braves. Gern, my man, it's great seeing your face on this Wednesday. How you doing?
Good to be here, man. I love getting on and talking some baseball.
You know, I do too. And like I said, it's Wednesday, October 3rd. I called you this morning, as I often do, to discuss the Braves and discuss, the upcoming playoffs. And it dawned on me, it's like, let's just hit record. Let's just hit record. Like, we're going to talk about it anyway. And you're like, hell yeah, let's do it. So this is off the cuff. This is unscripted. This is as if the listeners are sitting in the back of one of our vehicles while me and you are talking through Bluetooth, discussing the playoffs, right?
Love it. Let's get going.
First question. How much did you enjoy this 2023 Braves team?
It was awesome. They were fun to watch in every facet of the game. I mean, obviously everybody talks about the home run record, crushing baseballs and all that. They pitched well. Starters ERA were great. Same with the bullpen. I mean, it was just every night you're like, I'm going to see something different. I'm going to see somebody step up 1 through 9. That was awesome.
The early 90s was awesome when it was all new to us. I think back to that time period, but gosh, I can't remember a more fun 162 than we just had.
That's you're right. I mean, because I was in the same spot you were back in the 90s, man. That was like the coolest thing we'd ever experienced preteen into teenage years because it was so unexpected. Here, I mean, if you look back at our podcast at the beginning of the year, I think a lot of the stuff that happened, I don't want to say we expected it, but we talked like we did.
We did.
But to have it, to see it,
I'd love to go back and if we would have actually had some foresight to this, we'd have gone back and pulled up some of our predictions. And I bet almost every over hit in terms of the numbers we put for home runs, RBIs, wins, batting averages. They all had to go over, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Every single player 1 through 9 exceeded expectations. Acuna, I mean, I know that people are probably sick of hearing it. I'm not sick of talking about it. Best player in baseball, top 5 offensive season of all time, right?
100%. And not only was it amazing as a baseball guy to watch and appreciate some of that stuff, he's entertaining. And I think, his draw, especially to the younger crowd, and, as we'll talk to, I guess, a little bit into some of the rule changes and how it affected the game and the pace and all that. Acuna is the face of that. And I don't see that changing anytime soon.
Yeah, 40-70, he's in a club all to himself. 40-50 was by himself, 40-60 by himself. How about those Cubs announcers that got all butt hurt during the game when, he took his moment, lifted his base up as he should have. They did the celebration. Like, bad look for the Cubs, I thought. What do you think?
I understand they're going through this not right, that continued on through that series that basically cost them a playoff spot. But this is the game today. It's about entertainment and not just entertainment, but it's about accomplishments. That's what baseball has always been about. It's numbers, it's statistics. It's more than any other sport. You look back at numbers as significant. And that was huge. And by the way, Boog Sciambi is one of the Cubs announcers. He used to be the Braves.
He was a play-by-play guy. I know. He knows better. Boog knows better. National media jumped all over him for it, and I appreciate that. They got us back. So he's got to be MVP, right? I mean, the Mookie Betts talk was cute for a minute, but is there any way that Acuna is not the MVP of this season?
No, not if the voters are being honest. I mean, you look statistically through everything, and there were only a handful of numbers that you would say, oh, Betts is better on that. I think you had a few more doubles, right? But when you factor in, and I heard some interesting stats, I wish I had time to think about it before we got on this, about slugging percentage plus stolen bases. So basically the total bases you create in a bat is a slugging percentage. You add stolen bases to that because it's just like you created it, a single turns into a double. He's crushing everyone. Like this dude just took baseball by storm this year. He's like, I'm back from my injury. We accomplished some pretty huge things. Like in my mind, it should be unanimous. But if Bill Plaschke and guys like that have votes, you're gonna see Mookie getting a couple of first place votes.
Yeah, and what's so interesting is I agree with everything you just said. And Matt Olson, who just set franchise records in home runs and RBIs for the Braves, is kind of I won't say an afterthought, but any other season, he'd be getting talked about as the MVP. I mean, what do you end up with? 54, 55 home runs, almost 140 RBIs. We talked about him too, that the shift was going to play in his favor. Yeah. And God, did it ever.
How many base hits did he get to right field? And that's what I like seeing. I mean, yes, he hit home runs, but his average was up. He finished up near 280. I think last year was 242. And if you take out the time that he hit in the 2-hole, so once they moved him down to the 4-hole, and I think that was early June, dude hit like 325.
Tip of the cap to our friend Casey Collins too, who predicted that move to the 4-hole all along. He loves lineup construction. We love you, Case. And it was weird having him hit in the 2-hole, 4-hole where he belongs, caught fire. Beautiful thing.
No, and it made that lineup flow so much better. And then you factor in the year that Ozuna had coming in behind him. You got to pitch to him. You got to pitch to Riley. You've got to pitch to Albies in the 2-hole. Like everybody's got somebody behind them protecting. There's no holes, man. That's why it's so much fun to see.
There's no places for a pitcher to go and like take a deep breath. We'll forever compare Olson to Freddie. It's just the nature of what we do as fans. I said that when Olson is at 230, 240, I think I'd rather have Freddie, regardless of the power numbers. When Olson's at 270, 280, like he did this year, like I'm on Team Olson. I think that having him is a better fit than having Freddie. Now, I know Freddie hit 330 and had 100 RBIs. He's a great player. Where are you currently at Olson versus Freddie?
In this lineup, I'd rather have Olson. I think not to say that anybody can replace Freddie, and I love Freddie. Like that. I mean, we go back and listen to our podcast from that time when you got when the trade was made. I think Olson fits in perfectly into that slot. I love the run production. He also scored like 110 runs. So he's getting on base. I mean, everybody talks about Acuna, you're right, but any other year, Olson is going to be in that top 1-2 MVP vote for sure.
Yeah, he'll probably end up top 4. I'm guessing Freddie, him, Betts, and Acuna. Your boy Riley, my boy Ozzy, they just quietly put their numbers up. You know what's going to happen in 15 or 20 years? Both of those guys are going to be in the Hall of Fame. I'm telling you, because is there any reason to think that both those guys won't continue to put up 30 home runs, 100 RBIs, play good defense for the next decade? Because I don't see it dropping off. And then when you add all this stuff up, they're both be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. I mean, I think the production for Ozzy has a better chance of slipping just simply because of his size. And as a little guy myself, I get it. But a guy like Riley, I mean, dude is a beast of a human being. We saw him yesterday at the Braves practice game, from 15 feet away. Guy's huge. He's got a very simple swing. We joke, Ozzy drives me nuts when I watch him in particular bats. And it's like his swing. And then boom, we get to October. He hit 275. He hit 32 home runs. He drove in 105 runs, and he's a second baseman. I mean, historically, it's second base. If he does this for 5 or 6 more years and then has some solid years after that, I mean, I hear you.
They always say, and we say it too, the back of the baseball card don't lie. And it just doesn't for those guys. I mean, Ozzy's had his injuries. If he can stay healthy, he's going to keep doing it. We talked a lot about Arcia taking over for Dansby. I think when we recorded it back in April or late March, we didn't know if Arcia was even getting the spot. My God, what a pleasant surprise that guy's been. And aside from his production, he is so likable, great clubhouse guy. They all seem to kind of feed off his energy, and his hits always come in big moments. Like they're not just empty calorie stats. Like they always seem to be big moments.
He had a ton of late inning hits, and he played a great defense at shortstop. I mean, people compare, Dansby, and I get it. I love Dansby too. And I think I was one of those guys that wanted to see what Arcia could do, but I didn't have an expectation he'd make an all-star team. I didn't have an expectation he would be there the whole year. As the starting shortstop. I thought that was, if we look back, it's probably one of the things we said, hey, this is something AA is going to address near the trade deadline if we're not getting the production that we want. And the other thing you mentioned that I think is just as big as the rest of that, he's, I don't want to say taken the place of, but he's become that Heredia type in the dugout, that the Braves have had different guys in that role throughout the season, usually bench players. It's cool to see a guy that's in the game also being that dude, but he creates energy, man. And that goes a long way in a baseball game.
That's a really cool analogy in comparison. I hadn't thought about that before, but that's a good call. And then Ozuna from the Braves. Where the hell did he come from? He's everybody's favorite now. That guy got his ass booed every single at bat for what, 45 games, 60 games. Last year they booed
last year. Take it back to last year.
I booed him, hand in the air. And now everybody loves him, the big bear.
Hey, it's like we said at the top of this, man, production creates entertainment. And I don't know what he started eating the beginning of May, but that April, I mean, he was hitting like 088. I mean, we were talking like, man, Alex is probably going to drop him and eat, the rest of this year and 16 mil for next year just to get him off the roster. And he turned it around, man. That's it's been impressive to see.
In AA, we trust. I just can't say it enough. In AA, we trust. You're not going to hit every button you push isn't going to be right, but man, he sure does hit more right than wrong, doesn't he?
Oh, he does. He's a wizard up there, and he makes the unpopular moves too. The Freddie move that was immediately met with criticism. The Dansby move. Oh, I can't believe we're doing that. I mean, just look through Twitter. It was exploding. Like, what are we doing? And it works out.
How about that trade for Sean Murphy? Giving away Contreras, and we're like, there's got to be another piece to this trade. Everybody's scratching their head like somebody else has to be involved. Well, Murphy's been great. I mean, that dude is no nonsense. He is no BS. Shows up every day. Him and d'Arnaud, I think you might have sent it to me. You combine their two stats together. It's just crazy production from the catcher.
Yeah, it was like 33 jacks hitting like, the average was low. It's like 236, but you get 30 plus production from your catching spot. And I was like 90 RBIs. I'll take that all day.
So fun. And we haven't even mentioned Eddie. God, I will forever love Eddie. Look at the end of the year, his numbers right there too. It's just so fun. We're leaving out Michael Harris because we got to move on to stuff, but like again, 1 through 9. All right, pitching staff. People love to nitpick the pitchers, especially relief pitchers. Had tons of injuries. Max Fried, right. If you just told us back in April that they would be pitching the combined numbers game, we'd be like, whoa, we're kind of screwed. But your boy Spencer Strider, man, Cy Young material. He going to win it?
I don't think so. I think it's going to be Blake Snell. I think Strider has done a lot to deserve it. And you take out a handful of bad innings that he gave up 4 and 5 runs through the long ball. That ERA is, down from 3.8 to 3.2. I have just super high hopes for him over the next 7 years or whatever's left on that contract that they gave him last year. He's so much fun to watch pitch. He goes right after hitters. And he's a rarity as a starting pitcher in that he's really 95, 96% 2 pitches. I mean, he'll showcase that changeup every once in a while, but you go into the box, you're like, I know what you're going to throw me. And I still can't hit it.
Still can't hit it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have high hopes for him over the next month.
Yep.
I kind of think that as he goes, we go. I think back to these teams that had that dominant horse, Randy Johnson, Kerry Wood, Mike Pryor back, like going way back in the day. There's others I'm missing. Kershaw, of course, carried the Dodgers. We traditionally haven't had that. Smoltz, Glad, and those guys back then, but like recently, we haven't had that hard throwing strikeout pitcher that can just take over a game. And that's who I'm looking to the most to be like, okay, dude, he was hurt last October. It showed. He's full force. I expect huge things from him this month.
I do too. And I think he'll be named the game 1 starter. And I think he needs to set that tone. I was listening this morning to 680 and they said he was 4-0 against the Phillies this year. With just a ridiculous strikeout to walk and hit ratio. History points that he should be the guy, and we need him to be. To your point, that sets a big tone for a series, especially the short series. These 3 and 5 game series, man, they can swing on one pitch, one play so much faster than the traditional best of 7. that we're used to. So I think game one is so important this weekend.
Yeah, agreed. And we'll get to the makeup of, those game 5 series, but Max Fried becomes the second big piece. His finger blister, we'll talk. Both of us saw him pitch last night in the postseason workout. Wasn't very impressive. I don't know, if he's working on stuff or whatever, but I got faith in him. He's a gamer. He'll be fine. I don't think the blister is going to cause any problems. Maybe I'm wrong, but he seems like, if you slot him into game 2, like pretty good place to be.
I'll take it. I mean, as simple as that. If you tell me that's my game 2 starter, I'll roll with that any day. He's a gamer. I mean, the way that he pitched the October before when we took the championship is impressive, man. I mean, that dude was just a bulldog throughout the series. And I think he's got the stuff too, physically, not beyond just mentally, to go out there and fight through it. And that's what the Braves are going to need him to do, because we get beyond that in these series. And, the rest of the starting staff right now is a little bit of a question mark, and who's following.
That's where it gets a little wonky, obviously. I like Charlie Morton more than most people do, I think. I just respect him going to the hill every 5th day and putting up the innings that he does at the age that he is. He's just a great guy. Clearly, he's not going to be available for the NLDS, which I think is a problem. I do trust him when he does show up to be able to play, hopefully in the NLCS. Elder, look, he got us here. I think that we roll with him. Wright, a little more nervous about. I mean, what are your thoughts on the back end of the rotation?
Well, Wright should be fresh, right? I mean, what did he throw? 30 innings this year. Got to see him pitch a little last night too in that scrimmage game. And he's got the stuff. It's just, is he going to have command of it? And I think that's his big struggle. And for Elder, I think he's gotten tired, man. The most innings he's ever pitched, I think he was up to like 180, 185 for the season. And he's not a dominant guy. He's a location, mix up speeds. And when he starts getting that ball up, when it's a 92-mile-an-hour fastball or a hanging slider, that's a lot easier to hit than Strider's, slider coming in at 94 or 95.
Yeah, he's the pitch to contact guy that they always say is not who you really want in the postseason, because every base is so critical, and, excuse me swings and check swings and just contact can find green grass. So we'll see how he does. I still want to see him out there. I'd rather see him than, Dylan Lee or somebody else to come in and try to, no offense to Dylan Lee, he's the first thing that popped in my head. But Elder got us there. I'd like to see them give him a shot. Bullpen.
Hey, I'm with you on Morton. Just real quick on that. I love the points you made on Morton. And one of the things I really like, some of these older guys that have been at this for a while, these younger pitchers have never gone deep into games. I mean, starting pitchers are throwing less than they ever have. Guys like Morton, I mean, watching Zach Wheeler last night, get into the 7th and 8th innings for or the 7th inning, for the Phillies, upwards of 100 pitches. Like, Morton knows the situation. Like, he's going to go beyond what his body says, okay, we should be stopping now. And I think there's a lot to be said for that mentality. So we'll miss him this series. I hope whatever's wrong with his finger, allows him to come back, assuming the Braves move ahead, because we're going to need him.
For sure. All right. So Snitker, is he getting enough credit for the job that he does year over year with this team?
No, because you said it earlier. There's so much, especially to baseball, it's a slower game that happens in increments as opposed to like football or basketball, where there's so much more pace. I think culture plays a huge part in what these guys do, in part because of the pace of the game. And I think a guy like Snitker, that watched Bobby do this for so long and that toiled his way through the minor leagues and just saw every little bit of this, like, he understands that mental aspect. The players love him. The players love playing for him. The media is going to say, well, that lineup, anybody could roll out there, and win these games. But I think there's so much more to it. And, he'll probably lose to, Craig Counsell or somebody else for manager of the year. But
Schumacher.
I mean, that dude works wonders in that clubhouse, man.
The media has,
the players say it. They love him.
Yeah. The media has said that anybody could go and take the lineup card and write in 1 through 9 every day and let him go. But there's so much more to it, as you just pointed out. The players love him. The fans love him. I mean, who doesn't like Snitker? The story's great. The way he presents himself is great. He is truly just like a guy's guy, Yeah. He's emotional. He's enjoying it. Just lucky to have him. I mean, you talk about the way that the game has changed, and let's kind of shift gears a little bit, because both of us are old school statistics guys, like OPS. I'm still trying to wrap my mind around what's good, what's bad. But we all know batting average, right? Like we all know batting average. And I've got a stat for you that I'm going to see if you can answer this. All across Major League Baseball, how many players do you think hit over 300?
6.
9. Remarkably low.
Yeah.
Remarkably low. That seems crazy to me, right? Like, weren't there days of double digits, at least 20 plus guys hitting 300? Or am I just off by that?
No, that's the way the game has changed. I mean, you're looking at the 3 true outcome model where, I mean, even watching the playoff games last night when I got home from that scrimmage, Marlins 2 strikes down by 2, man on third, taking massive cuts, trying to hit the 3-run homer, right? Like you have 2 strikes and you're facing a dude throwing 98. Try to get a hit. And not enough players take that mindset anymore. And it starts, well beyond or well in advance of the game field. The teams are preaching this. The statistics say you should do this. Even when you have 2 strikes, you should be trying to do this. And I, old man on the couch here, I miss those days. I like the guys like Tony Gwynn that would go out there. I mean, that's why Luis Arias is so much fun for me to watch. Mm-hmm. Dude's just going out there and putting the ball in play where he can. Yeah.
I just thought it is what it is. I just thought it was wild. Like I went look today to see where everybody finished up, and I'm like looking down there. I'm like, oh my God, there's only this many people. And then if you go to 290, only 3 more guys. So that's only 12 people all across baseball hit 290 or above. And then you look at like Olson and Riley, who no one considers high average guys, right? We just mentioned like Olson, Riley has had traditionally decent averages, but like Olson 240, 250. Both those guys are top 20 across baseball in averages. Their 280-ish was like top 20.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just wild. So you mentioned the postseason practice workout. We were both there last night. Very curious to hear your takeaways. I mean, for people that aren't following, the Braves are trying to do something to keep the momentum going, not just sit back at home for a week while the wild card teams do their thing to avoid the letdown that happened last year. So I get it why they're doing it. But what was your takeaway from last night?
I thought it was a blast. It was a very child friendly environment. I mean, you had kids running up and down the bleachers, throughout the game, which you don't see in a regular game. There were several instances where the guy got out and Max Fried's like, no, stay on first because I want to work on my pickoff. I love that. And I love that they brought the fans in. It's a good PR move, I think, for the Braves. And it gives the players, I think, a little more reason to get out there and play hard. I tell you, one interesting thing was watching who played first base for the blue team. Yeah. It's like if something happens to Olson, is that going to be our first baseman? Oh my gosh.
So I had a lot of fun too, and agreed it was very child friendly. I took Graham and my nephew and my dad went. I will disagree a little bit though in terms of the on-field product. I thought it lacked, of course, it lacked some intensity, sure. But I thought they were just kind of going through the motions, and it almost at one point I'm like, are we doing more harm than good by having these guys out here pretending to care when they really don't care, just to get these live ABs, just to get these reps? Is it doing more harm than good? And I don't know the answer to that question, but I also was wondering if they really are going to do this for 3 straight days. Like, I could see that getting pretty old come Thursday.
Well, see, I look almost at the opposite. Whereas being the first one, season just ended, they had Monday off, it probably was a little more laid back. And as you get into game week, I could see where that intensity is going to get ratcheted up. I mean, it served other purposes too. It gave a chance for Max Fried to throw 75 pitches and get into a normal rhythm for every 5 days. Right. And I tell you what I really liked was AJ Smith-Shawver. He threw the junk out of the baseball yesterday. And when the Braves are going to make their, postseason roster plans, he's a guy that's right there on the cusp with a few others that are going to be considered. And I thought he looked really good.
You just stole my segue, bro.
Hey man, I got the notes.
I was going. He was great, and I don't see a scenario where they leave him off the postseason roster, even if they're just judging it on last night. I mean, he pitched against the A team, I'll call it, the regular starting 9, and he shut them all down.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm not trying to poo-poo the idea. I love that the Braves came up with something like that. I think it's creative. I think it's thoughtful. I just hope that it doesn't have the reverse effect. I guess we'll never really know. But
Well, just remember too, last year was the first year we had this scenario. I mean, the playoff change was last year, and they didn't do it, and they came out flat as all get out versus the Phillies. Now, granted, we could make excuses about pitchers being hurt, sick, whatever. They came out flat, and so I think Snit, to his credit, or whoever came up with it, I'll give Snit the credit here. Thought this would be a good idea, for the players to get some game speed action, as opposed to taking a couple of ground balls, hitting in the cage, and going home.
it's always a discussion towards the end of the year. It's like, what's the better path? I mean, we've seen so many wild card teams advance to the World Series, win the World Series. And we've seen so many division winners with the top records sit back and then come up flat. So, I think there's no perfect formula. I think it's very year dependent. I think it's very team dependent. So we'll see. I mean,
Yeah.
we'll find out. We'll find out in a week or so. But cool that we went. So the wild card matchup started last night. I don't know. Is there one that you're looking more? Obviously, Phillies and Marlins were paying the most attention to, but where were your eyes last night when you left Truist?
Well, unfortunately, there were only 2 games still on. Those American League games had the early starts. I'm interested to see how the Rays play. I've always had a little fascination with them simply because they're one of the lowest payroll teams. They consistently finish at the top of their division. Like, they just figure out how to get the most out of these players. Do I want to see them make the World Series? Not really, because I don't want to see a World Series in Tampa in that box of a stadium. But they're fun. I'm glad the Twins got a victory and got off that what was it, a 17-18 game schneid in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I mean, geez.
Yeah.
So that was good. But yeah, I mean, most of the attention is obviously on what the Phillies and Marlins do.
I'm glad that you were looking forward to watching the Rays, because people in Tampa certainly were not. Did you see that attendance yesterday?
No. Well,
they had 19,000 fans in the stadium for that game. And it looked like less than that. It looked like one of these, juice up the numbers type deal, because that place was empty. Blue Jays they're always a fun team to watch. Of course, they lost. I think that was one of the teams that Casey was high on coming into the season. I like them. They're a fun bunch. The Phillies and Marlins is what we'll pay the most attention to, obviously. Phillies won last night. I don't see a path to victory for the Marlins. I just think the Phillies are just that much better. But I don't know. We'll see. Stranger things have happened. Phillies are the kind of hot pick, right? People love jumping on the Phillies bandwagon. I've heard a lot of Braves fans say, don't want to see the Phillies, kind of afraid. I'm using air quotes, afraid of the Phillies. And I can see why. I mean, yeah, they're tough. Lineup's tough. Pitching's tough. Ballpark is crazy. They did it last year. Where do you fall on the Marlins and Phillies, and one versus the other, or how that series is going to go?
Well, I think the Phils will beat them tonight. I think it'll be done, and they'll be getting ready for Saturday to come to Atlanta. That's a team that is scary. I mean, you look at their lineup, starting at the top, Schwarber, I mean, the most unconventional leadoff hitter in the history of baseball. I saw a stat. I mean, he was going to become like the first player ever. What was it? To hit less than 200, have less than 50 singles, and hit more than 40 home runs. I mean, like, it was a ridiculous amount of his hits are home runs. He had like 40 singles on the season.
Pass. Not interested in
crazy.
Schwarber. Pass.
Yeah. But dude, Trey Turner, I mean, I hate him in a Phillies jersey, but that dude he's just a player, and he's turned it on. And I mean, Bryce Harper obviously has been the face of the game for a while now. They've got a great lineup. They've got 2 good starting pitchers at the top that can throw the snot out of the baseball. They'll be tough, but I mean, there's a reason why the Braves won, 16 games more than they did, why they beat them in the season series. When they played them last, I think we had already clinched. So, I'm not afraid of the Phillies. I mean, they're a team that can definitely beat the Braves, but they've got to go through our lineup, and they've got to throw more than 2 pitchers. So I think it'll be a fun series to watch. We've got mutually quite a few Philly friends, so it should make for a fun week.
You think there are 2 knuckleheads sitting in Philadelphia right now doing the same things we're doing?
100%.
Being like, I'm kind of afraid of the Braves. I mean, that lineup is tough. They got Acuna, they got Olsen, saying the same thing we're saying.
Oh, for sure.
Did you see that Christian Pache started the game for them last night?
I did not. Wow.
Yeah. So I don't know how he ended up there or how he ended up in the starting lineup, but I was kind of surprised to see that. So I think it's tough for the Phillies to make this run 2 years in a row. If history has shown us anything, it's just hard to do this twice in a row. We learned it with the Braves last year. So I'm with you. I think that we end up getting the Phillies, which is going to be sweet revenge from last year because that was a painful loss to them. Jumping to that series, I mean, we can spend a minute forecasting the Marlins, but I think I'm with you that other than saying that you like Arias and we love Jorge Soler and Jazz, like what else?
Of course we do.
What else do I really say about the Marlins? So Nola and Wheeler, they'll be their top two. We'll counter with Strider and Farid. And then from there, both teams probably get a little wonky in terms of the back end. So I guess you could see a scenario where 4 of the 5 games, if it goes 5, are pitched by those dudes, right? Depending on how the thing's set up, which could be really fun.
Yeah, they got some weird off days. Like they play Saturday, off Sunday, play Monday, off Tuesday, which I think helps both front ends of the starting rotation get ready for the games later in the series. So yeah, it's going to come down to a couple of bats here and there. I think, from a home field advantage standpoint, everybody raves, oh, the Phillies is the best in baseball. Man, I've been a Truist in some big spots, and I can't imagine a place being louder. And, the way that they packed during the regular season, it's going to be the same way in the playoffs. So
I think the difference with Philadelphia is that ballpark is so damn small that you just never feel safe because Bryce Harper, if he just like makes contact with the ball, I feel like it's gone. Trey Turner, it's just inevitable. Him, Schwarber, like you just never feel safe with leads there. Our guys can do it too, so it works both ways. They both play the same part, but I just remember the last series, every one of them were up by 3 or 4, and then they're just chipping away, and we end up in damn extra innings every time with them, and that's what scares me the most about their ballpark. They're fans, of course. Don't you feel the same way?
Yeah, and you actually bring up something I'd meant to mention earlier about the season. Just the number of runs they scored in the first inning, right? Like I think that's going to be a huge part of the series. If the Braves can consistently put crooked numbers up early to get the Phillies in a bind to where they may make a pitching change sooner than they'd like to because of a scenario, I think that plays in the Braves' favor, and that's frankly what they've been doing all year. But yeah, man, it's going to be a battle. With our bullpen, there are moments when I just want to turn away. But if you look at the stats again, man, they're good. The ERA is good. It's
I think every team, every fans of teams complain about bullpens, right? Like you're only happy with your bullpen guy if he gets everybody out every time. If they allow one run, it's the end of the world. So everybody has bullpen issues. But that leads to my next question, which is when do they announce the final roster, and do we have a sense of what that roster construction from a pitching perspective is going to look like?
I think they announce the day before. So I think like they have to put that in so I guess that'd be Friday afternoon that they've got to get that roster in. I don't know. I mean, I really don't know what to expect. I mean, you got a couple of guys in the bottom of the bullpen and guys that they depended on early in the season, guys like Colin McHugh, total question mark. Is he going to make it? Alan Winans comes up, did a great job, but is he really, throwing 87 miles an hour, the guy that you want in, coming in late or, maybe do some long relief. So I have no idea. I don't know what to expect, but we will see.
Yeah, some tough decisions to be made. So in years past, we have had a very nice, clean setup of, in an ideal world, your starter goes 6. You can debate whether that's right, wrong, or different, but that's what happens a lot. You got your 7th inning guy, you got your 8th inning guy, and you got your 9th inning guy. And that's the formula we used in 2021 with what was it called? The night shift, those 4 dudes.
Yep.
And they were money. How do you see the back end of the games working out, and who are the guys that you trust, that they come in, you're like, okay, we're good. What names do you like?
I mean, I think, working your way backwards, I mean, it's obvious Iglesias is going to be the guy to close things out. I mean, I think Snit has stuck with him in that role, throughout the season. I don't see that changing, even for matchups. But then up in advance of that, you got AJ Minter, you got Joe Jimenez, guys that have been in that role throughout the season. Jimenez has been a little off lately. And then the wild card to me is a guy like Kirby Yates. Like if he's throwing strikes, dude's nasty. He starts walking people, and it escalates quickly.
Those are the names I'm thinking too. AJ Minter has my ultimate trust. I know he's had some moments, but we've watched him for so long, and they put him in a starting role for 3 innings, gets the job done. Bring him in the 7th, gets the job done. Have him close down a game, gets the job done. So he's my number one. Iglesias has been great, and I agree. He's who you go with. He makes me nervous, truthfully. He just does. Jimenez, I feel like he's had more good outings than bad, but I don't know, something about him. I'm always kind of teetering with good Jimenez or bad Jimenez, and same with Yates. He's looked amazing at times, and at times you're like, what the hell is this guy doing? So look, they're going to mix and match some people.
Well, Pierce Johnson has done great since he's come over. I guess the other question mark is going to be, do they want another left-hander? Right. So a guy like Brad Hand.
Yeah. Who I thought he's been pretty good. And then our boy Jesse Chavez. I mean, he's got to be there, right? I mean,
I hope so, man. You talk about one of your fan favorites. I love that guy. I mean, even my wife is like, when is Jesse Chavez coming back?
We need him there, and I want to see, as you mentioned, AJ. He can fit so many different roles, right? Like you're going to have a long guy at some point. Maybe he comes in that role, or he comes in for an inning and just throws the shit out of it for 15 pitches and strikes guys out. How about like the pinch runner role? In the past, we've seen them carry a guy strictly to come in. I mean, is that Forrest Wall? He's been kind of doing that. What's the thought of carrying a player to serve that role?
Up until you just asked me, I hadn't thought about it. But with the DH, we have so many less pinch hitters. And in that Braves lineup, you literally have one spot where you're going to get pinch hit, and that's the left fielder. You got Rosario hitting against righties. You got Pilar that'll hit against lefties. And so you don't have to have as deep of a hitting bench as you would in years past to get through the National League, side of the playoffs. And so, I think it makes sense. You're not going to double switch with your catcher as much. I mean, I think, we'll carry 2 catchers. I don't think there'll be a third one on the roster. So a guy like Forrest, I would be surprised if he's not on it.
Yeah. He's a guy that if you get to extra innings, you can throw him out there at second base, to pinch run for whoever, assuming it wasn't Acuna or somebody. I can see him doing that. So we'll find out. It's interesting. The game Saturday night, game 1, is going to go up against UGA Kentucky. So there's going to be a lot of eyes that are splitting themselves between the Braves game and the Georgia game, me being one of them.
Have they announced the game time?
Yeah, it's 7:00. Saturday night, 7:00.
Oh, they did it? Okay.
Yeah. And Georgia, Kentucky is Saturday night at 7:00 as well. So got to figure out how to watch both of them. Other teams in the playoffs, Dodgers, they've always been the big, scary Dodgers. We took care of them this year out in LA, man, and they didn't look as scary as they had in years past. I mean, they're still the top 3 odds-on favorites to win are Braves, Dodgers. I think Astros are number 3. So they're still right there. Thoughts of them as a potential opponent in the NLCS? No disrespect to the Brewers and the Diamondbacks, but let's just talk about the Dodgers.
They're a really good team, and they're another team that if I was a local guy out in LA, easy to root for. Got a lot of very likable players. They've had the pitching issues health wise too, and so they're not as formidable as they were. They didn't get Walker Buehler back. So I think the Braves have the advantage. But guys, and I know Bellinger's not there anymore, but I feel like Bellinger in the playoffs hit like 850 against the Braves, and Max Muncy is who I was getting to. Same thing, dude's hitting like 212 for the season. If they play in the NLCS, he's going to hit 475 with 5 home runs and 12 RBIs. So they've got guys that can definitely change the game quickly, all throughout their lineup. And that place gets loud as all get out too.
Their old school lineup is like what I think that other teams will think about the Braves this year. It's like it never used to let up. I mean, the names you just mentioned, and add Corey Seager to the mix. He was with them too.
Oh yeah.
And they just never would let up. And it was exhausting to play them. And I hope that's what other teams feel when they play us. Their pitching is thin. I mean, Kershaw, he's always teetering on the brink of health, and he's probably the healthiest starter they have that's got any sense of experience, right? I mean, they're kind of thin at pitcher.
Yeah, I mean, most of their guys are hurt or awaiting a trial.
Yeah, all true. Betts, great player, of course. I'd still take Acuna over him. Freddie, we beat that, beat that dead horse, but I'd take Olsen over him. It'll be fun to play them. I hope that's what happens. D-backs, they got some interesting players too. Brewers always are kind of tough. Any feelings on those two teams, D-back and Brewers, would potentially look out for?
Yeah, I mean, the only time I saw the D-backs play this year was when Atlanta played them. Fun to watch. Corbin Carroll's a really good ball player. I mean, he's going to be the next, I won't say Acuna, but, big name that starts rising up from the young 20s guys. Brewers don't really hit. They've got some good pitching. Woodruff got hurt, not sure what a pitch last night, or Burns. I can't remember which one. We'll see if they get there. But I think everybody outside of Milwaukee, Arizona, and Philadelphia, and Miami, for those who watch down there, they want Braves Dodgers. MLB wants Braves Dodgers. Like, the whole baseball world wants to see this matchup, and I think that's what's going to happen.
So I need to mention Corbin Carroll, and he's a great player. I saw a comparison of his stats and his production versus Michael Harris. If you took out Michael Harris's first month, which I know you can't say it didn't happen, but if you just look at it, Michael Harris is more productive than Corbin Carroll, which is crazy because everybody loves Corbin. It just underscores like how good Michael Harris is too. And we haven't given him much love in this first however long we've been talking. But he's somebody that can take over a game as well with his defense and with his offense, of course. So just thought it was interesting to point out that he is right there if you look at it with Corbin Carroll. Well,
think about it this way. You made the same comment about Olsen's year this year versus a Freeman or versus Betts and Acuna and what they've done, right? It gets kind of overlooked. Harris hitting the 9-hole for 80% of the year. It's easy to not see what he does because you're constantly talking about the guys in front of him. But dude's a wizard in the field. I was at a game the other night, robbed a home run right in front of me. I mean, watching him go back on that ball and track it. The dude is a great center fielder. And I'm super excited the Braves locked him up.
So looking at the 6 teams in the National League, no one, there's no more like big 3, big 4 starting pitchers. If you get to the playoffs with like 2 guys you're comfortable with, you're kind of ahead of the game, which again is a shift in the way that these games used to be played and series used to be looked at. But I don't think any team, American League as well, is going to say we've got 3 or 4 like dudes that we are totally relying on, and studs and, aces and all that kind of stuff. I mean, do you get the same sense of what the pitching staff construction?
Yeah, it's there was I think it was on CBSSports.com. They did bold predictions for the playoffs and some over-unders. And one of them was the number of games a starting pitcher would go beyond the 6th inning. And they set it at like 6. And they took the under, right? It's ridiculous. I mean, the game has just changed so much. I mean, you get a guy struggling in the 4th inning, 47 or 57, 60 pitches in, you're going to your specialist already. And so it's just a totally different approach to how you construct that lineup. And I think that managers manage so differently in the postseason. I mean, I realize that everything is magnified and you don't have the ability to let an inning go and risk a couple more runs. But think about some of the decisions the managers make pulling starters in the 3rd inning when otherwise you'd let them kind of work through it. It's just wild to see how 27 outs are being claimed by these defensive teams. Statistics, man. It's the analytics that say this is the right move in this spot. And that I think that is what has changed that flow of the game more than anything else. I think that you're right. And I think that the other thing, which is statistics, is that they don't want these pitchers facing the same person 3 times, the lineup 3 times. The batting averages just jump crazily once you get to that third AB. So I can see the Braves trying to like team up and pair, let's say 3+ innings from Elder with 3+ innings from Wright, so that you're getting 6 innings from a starting pitcher, and again in quotes, but not facing the same player those 3 times. Well, especially for younger guys like that. Like I think there would be a different approach somewhat with even though Strider's younger, just he can dominate a lineup. Fried, I can see them running with a little longer. But for those guys, yeah. I mean, Elder has a good couple of runs through the 4th inning, gets into a little trouble, like boom. See, buddy. Thank you for your 10 outs. We appreciate your service. Yep. Let's move on. Go cheer on your teammates.
American League, no Yankees, no Red Sox, which doesn't bring a tear to my eye. Orioles, great story. I like seeing them get there. They've got a great fan base that's starved for this kind of success. I like their catcher. Adley Rushman is a stud. But there's some other teams out there that I don't know much about. Candidly, I don't watch too much American League Baseball. We mentioned the Blue Jays are a fun team, but any of those other teams that are sticking out to you that you're going to want to try to watch or look out for?
Well, I mean, the two you mentioned, the two best teams. I think the Orioles are a great story. Don't know much about the roster. But I equate the scenario much to what we experienced back in the beginning of the 90s when the Braves went from, last place to first. I mean, I think the Orioles, would they lose 100 games last year or the year before? So that would be a great storyline. I'm kind of tired of watching the Astros. I don't know if it's the scandal or if it is just that they've been there and done that. Hopefully these people are saying, I don't want to see the Braves again because we've seen them in the World Series, for the last 5 years. But either one I think would make for a good series.
So I'm not kind of tired of the Astros. I'm flat out done with them. Like I don't need to see them anymore. And this is coming from a guy that used to really like Bergman and used to really like Altuve and liked Correa when he was there. I don't need to see those guys anymore. And I don't think it's because I'm, quote, afraid of them beating the Braves. I'm just tired of watching them. I'm tired of their pitchers. I don't like Tucker. He's a Florida guy. I don't like Pena. So yeah, you struck a nerve with me, dude. I'm done with the Astros. I hope whoever they get matched up with in the NLDS takes them out.
Yeah, so we'll see, man. I'm with you. I don't watch a whole lot of American League Baseball. Primarily just the Braves, but I think storylines. If the Orioles could make it, I think would be awesome. I think it'd be cool to see the Twins in there. And their fan base has been waiting a long time for something like that as well. Well, sure, you could say that about Blue Jays too, Rays too. So
I was going to say, really, any of the teams not named the Astros, those fans would love it. I mean, the Rangers, I always kind of like the Rangers. I don't know why. No individual player sticks out to me about I should like the Rangers, but I just kind of do. Their team is scary, man. Their offense is loaded. They're a team. They're a team that is I mean, we can jump ahead, but they're my prediction to come out of this from the American League and be in the World Series.
Well, I think they I don't know if they swept. They took at least 2 out of 3 from the Braves early in the season, and they crushed the baseball. Yeah. I mean, Corey Seager, we've obviously seen him as a Dodger. The other guy I really like, there's Marcus Semien, their second baseman. Just a good ball player, man.
Don't forget Garcia. That dude is jacked. I mean, jacked. And do you know who else is on their roster in their bullpen?
Mike Minor.
Will Smith.
Will Smith. Oh, great.
I can't tell you what his role is. Maybe he's the closer. I don't know. Somebody will fact check me. Maybe he's not even on the roster, but postseason roster that is. But he is on the team. We gotta love Will Smith, man. That run he had 2 years ago. We gotta love Will Smith.
Oh, I'm laughing, not at him. Guys like Will Smith, Soler, Jock. I mean, I don't care whenever they come back. Those are always going to be dudes that did it for us. So
who is your? I mean, this is pulling out thin air, but we had those 3 guys last year or 2 years ago. Eddie, I would say, was top of the class for them. Who's one name that you're going to look back on in a month from now and say that was the guy this October that led the Braves to a championship? You get one guy.
I mean, if I want to go a little off the radar, Michael Harris.
Damn you! You stole it from me.
I think he's got such a multiple ways he can impact the game. He can make the diving saving catch, or make the throw to home plate to get a guy tagging up from third, or hit the 3-run homer, or hit the single to get the guy in from third. And I think, he's been hitting lately in the 6 and 7 hole. And I think the way that they're going to pitch around the middle of the lineup, I think is going to give him a lot of opportunities with guys on base. And we'll see what he does.
You're a smart man, dude. I got nothing to add. What's next? All right. So I just said that I thought the Rangers were going to make the World Series. Are you prepared to make a prediction on the fly? American League representative in the World Series.
I'm just trying to think back to our April talk on this. I think I said Astros and Braves.
So you're sticking
pretty
with
sure
it?
I did.
Okay.
No. Yeah, I am actually. I am. I'm thinking the Astros are going to find a way to pull it through, and I think the Braves are going to find a way. If I'm making predictions on the way they do it, Phillies in 4, Dodgers in 6, Astros in 6.
Amen. From your mouth to God's ears.
There
God,
we
I
go.
love it. I love it. Well, I'm not going to argue with any of that other than I'm going to put the Rangers
And
in
just for
there.
clarification for your listeners, I was not picking those teams to win. I was picking the Braves to win against those teams in that number of games.
I'm with you. I'm with you. I did hear when I hung up the phone with you this morning, coincidentally, Morgan Wallen's song came on 98 Braves. I don't know if that was a good sign or a bad sign. I don't want there to be a song about the 2023 Braves coming out by insert new favorite country singer in 15, 20 years.
It's a no sign because that song plays on repeat like every 45 minutes on the country stations here.
So you're saying it was going to be on
my
no
kids
matter
know
what.
it, the whole thing.
But
yeah, it's such a fitting song though. But we're not going to be saying that about 2023. I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I'm looking forward to this month a lot. I'm in a good headspace, I think, where I have, and this might come across as sounding kind of soft. I've enjoyed this Brave season so much that I'm in a really good spot coming into this month. I don't know what that means in terms of if they end up losing along the line. Like, of course, I'm gonna be upset, but I don't know, man. Like, I've gone into other seasons like on edge, nervous, like this is really going to be a big deal. I don't
Well,
feel
let me
that way
turn
right
the tables on you. Let me be the interviewer for a minute. What are you most looking forward to seeing?
I'm looking forward to them hosting up the trophy at the end of this month. I'm looking forward to Acuna letting the whole world see what he can do. And I'm looking forward to him gaining new fans because we, of course, all love him. I would love to hear a Phillies or a Mets or a Marlins fan like true feelings about him. Of course, we hate him. He's a showboat. He's cocky. He's this, he's that. But they got to respect the hell out of him. I want the random fan of Minnesota to watch him play for a week and be like, holy cow, this dude is as advertised. I want to see Matt Olson show some emotions. I want to see him come out of his skin and enjoy what he has done. His stoicism, I think, is great, but I want to see him kind of show some love. That's the wrong word, but you know what I mean. I want to see Arcia and Albies keep laughing and keep the mood as it is. I just love them all, man. Like I just do. I just love them all, and I want the whole rest of the country to see it on display for a month. I don't want them to, crap out against the Phillies and us say, remember back in 2023 that great regular season. I just don't want that.
Yeah, well said.
That's it, man. That's it. I think we just nailed it. I think that our telephone conversation that we hit record on, hopefully will be enjoyed by everybody. Maybe we'll do a World Series preview when insert Astros or insert Rangers get played. My last question for you, though, is this. Has nothing to do with the Braves or the postseason. I'm just curious. If you're the GM of a team, what is your take on Ohtani in the offseason as the biggest free agent to come out maybe ever?
Good question, man. They threw around the wildest numbers, $500 and $600 million for this guy that's already, 30, 31 years old or 29, whatever he is. I think the injury zaps that. I still think he is probably, if not the most, in the top 2 or 3 in the discussion on most dynamic hitters in the game, and the way that his approaches at the plate. So I don't see where his value is going to go down to, some marginal, DH. But the fact is, if he can't throw, he's only DHing. I think he'll stay on the West Coast. I think he wants to be out there, and I think there are 3 or 4 teams with the pocketbooks and the desire to win that are going to want to sign him. Whether that's San Francisco, San Diego, or Los Angeles. But it was fun to see him come through Atlanta because we don't get to see him play that often, and it was impressive. I mean, everything you hear about, seeing some of the highlights, you see him on the field, you're like, dang, this guy's good.
He is as advertised on the field, and from a marketing perspective. I mean, can you imagine him ending up in Seattle or something where they can just play that? I don't know. I mean, we'll see how it plays out. I agree. He's not going to be a $500 million guy. He might have been, but for this injury, someone will overpay him, and someone's going to hate it in 8 years from now when he's not able to pitch anymore, but he's still potentially a productive free agent. So anyway, thanks for answering that question. just because I got you here and I'm curious.
Yeah, man.
All right, dude. Well, thank you for hopping on. Always enjoyed talking baseball with you. Hope everybody out there enjoyed this and got juiced up for the playoffs. So this will air just ahead of game 1. So let's see if our predictions come true, buddy. We'll be talking about it. We'll be watching it, and go Braves.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. We'll see you.
See you, everybody. Thanks for listening. Keep chopping. Talk to y'all later.